I'm here with Treasurer Folwell and Frank Lester, also from our comms team, and just want to say good morning to everybody and thank you for joining us. Would you all mind just telling us who's on the phone this morning?
Hazel Bradford with B&I.
Good morning, Hazel.
Good morning, everyone. Ria Rao with Money Management Report.
Hi, Ria. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, thanks.
This is Mark Barrett with the Asheville Citizen-Times.
Oh, great, Mark. Thanks for being here. And is that all we have on the phone, or is there somebody? I think somebody's got a bad connection. Do you all have your phones on mute? Sounds like we're getting some background noise from somebody.
Mine is on mute, but
Okay.
We could all redial in if you'd rather.
No, I think we'll just go ahead. I'm going to go ahead now and just give you a quick recap since our last call. I know you all saw the advisory that went out, but we got some good news with a clean audit from the state auditor's report. We've also brought in a new head of internal audit. Our retirement system won 6 national awards that we're very proud of, and we can also give you a year-end update on some fee savings. So I will go ahead now and turn it over to Treasurer Folwell.
Thank you, Stephanie and Frank and Brian, and for all those who are participating, Merry Christmas to our audience. And just to sort of add on to some things that Stephanie just mentioned, we obviously have had another busy month. In addition to that, I had my first sit-down meeting with the new president of Blue Cross Blue Shield, and that was a reiteration of what people on this call have heard in the past, and that is that our when we re-upped with Blue Cross Blue Shield, it was not a renewing of our vows, but a resetting of our relationship in every way that Webster's dictionary defines that term. So a lot of things going on in retirement, and we'll just start with the questions.
Does anybody have a question for us?
Yeah, actually I do.
Okay, go ahead, Ria.
Hi, Treasurer Folwell.
Hey, how are you?
I just wanted to ask, last month you had announced the internal indexing, and I wanted to know how that's going and whether you still foresee a 12.5 billion transition over next year.
Great question. I just got through meeting with the internal indexing team who are in the office next to us with some of our pension defined benefit consultants, and it's going extremely well. I saw one email from one of the folks that have helped us pull this off in the fourth quarter who said they've never seen this go so smoothly. So we're excited about it, and our plans have not changed in terms of bringing the 12 billion in-house to internally index it in 2018.
Okay, and just wanted to follow up on that. I wanted to ask whether, since now the system has more experience with internal indexing, are there any concrete plans on how to bring international equity strategies in-house?
Well, we one of our philosophies around here is that we start out like we're going to hold out, and we just started the U.S. internal indexing product, and as much planning that goes into something like that when we've never done it before, it's just really important to us from a compliance standpoint, from a financial accounting standpoint, from a tracking standpoint, that we know all the pipes are connected to the right places. We just always want to make sure that before we would go into another realm of this, that we want to make sure everything is up and running and seamless as possible.
Okay, thank you.
Did we have someone join us just a moment ago? No? Okay, I thought I heard somebody dialing in.
Yeah.
Does anyone else have a question for Treasurer Folwell?
I do.
Okay, go ahead.
Hi, it's Hazel.
Hi, Hazel.
I have a question about this past year and how different next year is going to be in terms of staffing and investments made, because other than the in-house indexing, which I realize is a big deal, have there been any investments made, new investments this year?
Thank you, Hazel. We just signed off on another tranche of real estate investing with a manager that we had previously had a relationship with, and that deal was cemented last week. Secondly, as many on this call know, we have about $10 billion worth of uncalled capital in the defined benefit plan, and we're continuing to monitor inflows and outflows of capital as it relates to the $6 billion worth of pension benefits that we have to pay out every year. And lastly, as far as staffing is concerned, we are posting positions currently. We're going to be announcing a process after the first of the year for search for a chief investment officer. But I will say that I have been very excited in the postings that we have put up so far at the dozens and in some cases hundreds of applicants that we've gotten of people who want to be a part of this system going forward. So I'm super excited about that, and 2018 will be a year of some new faces, but also sticking with our mission of reducing complexity and building value for our participants, and as that relates also to new investments for next year.
So when you say, I'm sorry, go ahead.
You have the floor.
Thank you. When you say faces, plural, what other faces are you posting or going to be looking for?
Yeah, we, other people can talk about our personnel issues. As the treasurer, I'm don't have that same latitude. People pick things up off of LinkedIn and other types of social media to figure out folks are no longer working here. I will our director of operations, for example, moved to be closer to her family up in Wisconsin, I believe. That is a position that's currently out on the web on the NC.gov that is being posted. We're posting portfolio manager positions. We're posting analyst positions and the like.
Okay, thank you.
All the above: analysts, portfolio managers, and directors.
And a CIO.
Yes.
And you're definitely going to have a CIO? Because I got the sense the last few times that you were thinking of maybe working with the team you have.
Well, I'm very happy and very excited with the team I have. I will tell you that as I've stated before, we have had 7 CIOs in the last 13 years at the Treasurer's Office. I'm not going to jump into making the wrong decision. I don't think that's good for our participants or our employees or the taxpayers in North Carolina. And so anyone who becomes the CIO of the North Carolina pension system, we're not going to jump to a conclusion we're not going to confuse activity with accomplishment in that regard either. So I'm very happy with where we are, but see the need to start this process, and starting that process begins with figuring out what process that we have followed in the past.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions?
Mark there. I've got a question for you.
Sure, go ahead, Mark.
Treasurer Folwell, what is your impression of the impact that the contract dispute between Blue Cross Blue Shield of North Carolina and Mission Health System here in the mountains had on state employees?
Well, the impact that it had would obviously.
Can you unmute your phones, please? Okay, thank you.
The impact it had goes against the things that I'm here for, which is to increase accessibility, affordability, and the quality of the health care that we have the fiduciary responsibility and loyalty to in terms of our participants. I met with Blue Cross at the beginning of this process. I met with Blue Cross Toward the middle of this process, I went to Asheville to meet with the president of Mission Hospital. Blue Cross has a business to run, Mission has a business to run, I have a business to run, and I'm going to run mine. I would say that we're glad that they have come to an agreement, but we also have been very clear that the state health plan can no longer be a part of the medical arms race going on in this state. It's the only thing in your readers' lives that they can't tell you what they got and what they paid for it when they consume it. And we are going to be attacking that in 2018 from several different fronts. Number one, we're going to be redesigning our state health plan card. And we're going to redesign it because it's going to say your state health plan paid for by you and taxpayers like you. The point is that people think that Blue Cross Blue Shield is the insurer for the state health plan, and they are not. We are self-funded. They are a third-party administrator. We're excited that they have come to an agreement, but I'll say this, as I said earlier, for this agreement to come into fruition is not, from my standpoint, going to be a renewing of our vows. It's going to be a resetting of our relationship. We have to improve the quality, the access, and the affordability of health care for people in Western North Carolina.
To what extent do you think the agreement that was signed between Blue Cross and Blue Shield will do that, or is it just an extension of the status quo?
Well, I haven't seen the agreement, so I would anticipate that it will go toward doing what I've just described. But, you know, the details are very important here. I know that I'm going to run our business, and with the help of the great people that work in the state health plan. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to educate our retirees and active employees about the value of the state health plan to them on an annual basis. And then we're going to connect the dots so that these people that we've always considered to be, quote, participants in the state health plan, 750,000 of them, that we're going to convert them from being participants to being fans, customers, then to fans, and then watchdogs. And we think that's the single most important thing that we can do over the next 5 years so that we can sustain the state health plan as we know it. In the past, what has happened is that the state health plan has been running along, and it'll go into crisis mode where it's running on 2 days of reserves, and then some dramatic things will have to happen, and then we go for a few years and the state health plan builds reserves, and then we go back into a crisis mode. We need to bring certainty to the participants of these plans and the taxpayers of this state, which is what I intend to do. I don't intend to bring certainty to them by messing around with co-pays and co-insurance and formularies and hiding things. This is a very important issue. It is the single largest part of any budget of any community where your readers read your publication. These two items are the single two biggest things in the state budget, and we have no choice but to figure out how to preserve, strengthen, and sustain these plans. I will say that I have not seen the contract, but I would hope that that contract would bring into focus things that we have been doing here over the last 12 months, and that is signing our contracts and not other people's. And we have lots of examples of that this year, and all of that benefit has come back to the participants of the plan and the taxpayers of this state.
Does it concern you at all that the parties in this agreement have not been willing to say how long, have said basically nothing about what's in it, at least publicly? They may have said something to you, although it doesn't sound like it, and haven't even said how long the agreement's going to run for.
Well, Shame on me. I haven't asked that question, but I'm sure you have. So I think that's a timely and a fair question, personally, and it's one that I'll get to sometime this week. Our focus on this side has been on getting through open enrollment, which we just completed, getting more people to see the financial and the medical virtues of being on the Medicare Advantage plan, which we are approaching 90% of our retirees over the age of 65 being on the Medicare Advantage plan. It's great for our participants, it's great for the state health plan, and it's great for taxpayers. One of those triple win situations. So we'll get back into the details, and the reason that your question is so important to me is simply this. The governor's budget only funded the state health plan this year at a 4% growth. The General Assembly's budget only funded the state health plan this year at a 4% growth. Everybody on this call knows what's happening to prescription drug prices and health care costs. They're obviously higher than 4%. So what's in the details of this contract are very important to me, not only for Western North Carolina, for Mission, for Blue Cross, but what it portends on things that I can anticipate over the rest of the state as contracts come up over the next 2 years.
Treasurer Folwell, I don't want to take too much of your time on this. I'm sure other people will have other things they want to know, but just one other thing, and I'll shut up. During the period that Blue Cross and Mission were at odds, do you know if you folks heard much from people who were covered by the state plan saying they couldn't get the care that they needed, or if they had other issues?
I would say that this is it's a great question. Don't ever apologize. That's why we do these calls, because Mark, you're closer to 4 other state capitals than you are at this one, physically. And we never want you or folks in Western North Carolina to feel disconnected from what we're doing up here. So never apologize for that. Our door and hearts and minds are always open to you. But getting back to the basis of your question, this is one of the big issues for me. And I'm not a pharmacist, a clinician, doctor, or any of those other things. It's my understanding that even when they were out of network, that there are some, if people were in the middle of certain types of procedures, that there was no change in where they went, the services they got, or how they were billed for those. I think your question really goes to those people who were not in sort of a plan of action, as I'll call it for lack of a better medical term. And obviously we heard some concerns along those lines about people having to choose different providers, and we're too close into it right now, because one of the questions I asked when I was sitting down with the president of Blue Cross is, how quickly can you light this back up? And it's going to be lit up here in just a few days, so we'll obviously be monitoring and be concerned about people who went out of network, how they got paid for being out of network, and the whole payment scheme of what happened during this transition period. This is the first one that I've been through. Unfortunately, it's not the first one that our state health plan has been through in terms of these contract negotiations and these timeout periods. And I've learned a lot through this, and I'm sure I have more to learn going forward. But we're very happy that we've come to some agreement, that they've come to some agreement on this. We're looking into some things that I was looking into before I knew this was even an issue, which is how people get paid. It's very important to me that once a contract's negotiated, that people get paid for their services. And our agency, in so many ways, on the pension and the healthcare side, has been in the pay and chase business, where we pay out money that we shouldn't have and then we chase it down. We're trying to peel away that onion to make sure that we're taking care of things on the front end, so that we're no longer in that business, because nobody benefits from any of that.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks for joining us.
Does anyone else have any questions for the treasurer this morning?
Well, it's Hazel, and I have the perpetual fee question because you put it up there. What are your plans for next year?
Well, what's happening, Hazel, and last week somebody brought me a proposal that I signed that saved fees about $2.5 million on one of our investments, and I know there's been a lot of publicity about my concern about fees, and obviously it's not just Dale Folwell, the treasurer of North Carolina, who's concerned about these. Warren Buffett's concerned about them. People in my line of work across the country and actually internationally are concerned about fees, and I think the whole tailwind from fee reduction is starting to manifest itself in the people voluntarily and coming to us and saying we think we can do this, and that's really all I really wanted to get to with regarding the culture of fees. Our focus next year, Hazel, is to continue to focus on fees versus value for our participants, because that's what our fiduciary responsibility is, and also look at people who are getting fees who are underperforming the benchmarks that they agree to, whether it's a 1 year, 3 year, 5, 7, 10, or 15-year benchmark in some cases. We're not going to pay fees where we don't perceive value or have gotten value when it was promised to us.
Okay, thank you. Is that in all asset categories, or are you still, how are you looking at it? Just across the board?
Yeah, across the board. We're in real estate, for example, we're looking at real estate just under alternative investment. We're looking at structures that where there's overflow and things, there's no fees, there's no management fee or no pref fee. So everybody knows our attention to fees, and in some of our asset classes, our inflows of capital return to us has exceeded the outflow, even more perpetuated by the fact there's not been any new deals this year. So we're continuing to monitor all that, and at the end of the day, next year is going to be totally surrounding the word sustainability. So when Mark asked me a question about the state health plan next year, it's somewhere in that answer is going to be sustainability. What does his question have to do with, and my answer have to do with how we're going to sustain these things? So anyway.
And I have a Washington question I have to ask. UBIT, the shorthand up here as part of tax reform would be to have public pension plans be taxed on their investment income.
Yeah.
Is that on your radar?
Well, it's on my radar, but I hope that it's on the radar of these national organizations that people like me pay tens of thousands of dollars to a year to be a member of, and who are out there advocating our positions on these issues. My total focus is on the health insurance tax. That's a $43 million tax, a premium tax on the state health plan next year. It's $390 million statewide in North Carolina, and I believe it's $16.3 billion nationally. This is a premium tax that is in the freezer, and I've asked all of our congressional delegation. I sent a letter to President Trump asking him to sign an executive order. It was put in the freezer last year on a bipartisan basis, and I'm sure
tucked away for good?
No, for 1 year.
For 1 year.
Yeah, for 1 year. And I'm sure it was put in the freezer because they thought they were going to figure out what to do with health care in 2017. That didn't happen. So I've asked that something that's in the freezer in contemplation of figuring out what the bigger health care picture is going to look like, that if it's in the freezer on that premise, then it should stay in the freezer for 2018. And the White House has called back on a couple of occasions. We're not getting it was 3 sentences 7 years ago in probably a 2,000-page document that had this fee, this premium tax, and it's impacting everyone. Now, your logical question should be, well, Treasurer Folwell, you said just a few moments ago that you're self-insured in the state health plan. Self-insured plans are exempt from this, and you'd be absolutely correct, except my Medicare Advantage product is a capitated product where we pay a premium and we're done. We don't have any cost beyond that. And this premium tax is not just 2.86% of my $120 PMPM premium that I'm paying. It's on the entire Medicare spend per participant. I would not mind the 2.86% tax on a $120 premium. That's $3 or $4 a month. I can absorb that. But this is $24, $25 a month premium tax on a $120 premium. And that's why I've asked the President of the United States to sign the executive order to leave it in the freezer for 2018.
Any other follow-up questions, Hazel?
I do have one,
Yes.
if
Okay.
you have a minute, on the U-bit, because I have talked to the national organizations you've mentioned, and they're trying to galvanize the troops on this, or they are. But they also were saying that some of the larger public plans your size, pension plans, need to contact their members of Congress early in office. So I wondered if you've done that, and if it's helping, or if you're getting any kind of response from your state delegation.
We've done more than just send a letter and an email. We've done everything we've been asked to do by these organizations. B, we have targeted our communication specific to whatever committee and whatever chamber that particular bill or that provision happens to be in, and we've made phone calls with every member of those staffs that are associated with this.
What are they telling you?
Frank?
Hazel, hi, it's Frank. How are you doing?
Hi, Frank. Hi, Frank. Thank you.
You know, I think up front there was a little bit of surprise. They did not necessarily understand the change and its impact on public pension plans, and I think you probably heard the same thing. So there was a little bit of, wow, we didn't know that this was going to be impacted. So it was that time frame in which they were better understanding it. The last I heard is that they are considering, at least the Ways and Means in the House, I know the conference committee hasn't met yet, considering exempting public pension plans from the UBIT provisions and leaving it intact for the rest. But I have not seen any language along those lines, and that's just, you know, emails flying around. So I have no actual confirmation of that. If you can confirm it, I'd love to know about it.
Yeah, I'll continue to look into that. Have you crunched what it would cost, how much it would take away from your portfolio if you have to pay a tax?
We
Or
don't
will
have,
it change your investment strategy because it's just on direct investment?
it would definitely have a financial impact, although I think the original number we had felt it could impact up to $20 billion worth of our investments. From what the analysts and the financial attorneys have told me, it's really hard to put a number per se, just because there's other ways that we could change our investments to minimize the impact of any new tax. I think of even more problematic issue for us has been the fact that the tax would actually go into effect 1/1/18. And
So you couldn't change anything but that fast?
No, administratively that becomes a little bit of a nightmare, Hazel, is what I've been told. So, you know, there's a number of reasons why we have expressed to, specifically as the Treasurer indicated, those appropriate committees, but specifically the North Carolina delegations in those that are represented in those committees, what the multiple problems are, at least so far as public pensions are concerned on this issue.
And I would add, Hazel, I know we got other questioners, but I would add that we need somebody to be monastic about this. We need somebody in Washington who gets their teeth around this thing and doesn't let go. And and they're monastic about it. They don't get diverted or anything. That this is their MAT, their MAT. This and what I have found in actually talking to members of Congress is that, you know, the UBIT, and then I start talking about the HIT, and the HIT sometimes called the HIF, and we, you know, we need somebody to be monastic on these issues who are considered the subject matter experts and can put a bow on it. We don't need one person who knows how to buy wrapping paper, another person knows how to buy the president, and somebody else who knows how to buy a card, and somebody else who knows the beautiful right thing to write in the card. We need somebody who can do all of those and actually put a bow on this over the next few days.
Yes, I'll check back when they do something.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Hazel.
Anyone else have any questions?
Yes, I just wanted to ask about the real estate investment.
Yes.
You said that this is with an existing manager. Which manager was this, and how much? How big was the investment?
LBA, $250 million.
And ABA, is it?
LBA, Larry Boy Apple.
Larry Boy. Okay. And this was the only investment deal that was made this year?
That's the only new investment that we've obviously had, you know, billions of dollars worth of cash calls this year because of investments that were done
Right.
at the end of 2016.
Okay. Okay, thank you. That is it.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions?
That real estate investment, is there anything noteworthy about the strategy? What is it?
Well, it's a real estate investment that goes back into the has to do with logistics and infilling. We are in the process of getting a massive distribution from one of the other investments along those lines, which I think had a European bent to it. So it's really just filling, F-I-L-L-I-N-G, a hole in our portfolio where another investment of a similar size was being crystallized and equitized and cashed out.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. Any other questions this morning? All right. Well, thank you all for joining us. Of course, you can always call myself or Frank. Treasurer, do you have any final comments?
Just want to thank you all for joining us. It's gratifying. I appreciate all the support here in the office to do this. It's gratifying that we have a different rotation of callers every month. One of the first calls I did, somebody asked me about the dredging contract in Dare County out toward the Outer Banks, and because they were curious about something that was going through the local government commission. So we love hitting the large topics, but we also like getting into the regional specific things like Western North Carolina Mission Health and the like. Wish you all a safe and happy holiday season and a prosperous 2018.
All right.
Same
Thank
to
you,
you.
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Great. Bye-bye.